What has these people not done? What have these people not done? What have we not gone through in the hands of these people? To the point that they even have to literally suffer a statue. A statue. I hope I'm pronouncing that very well. Oh, black people have seen a lot of shit. Like they've gone through a lot of hell that at the end of the day you look at yourself and you be like, how do we reverse the hand of time so that we can literally deal with these people by ourselves? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. With that being said, let's just watch and let me know your honest opinion in the comment section. And I'll be back with commentaries. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing my videos, dropping super thanks, joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And yes, with that being said, let's go roll out the clip. I'll be back with commentaries. Wow.
So it's always the hair that tells the true story about the true ethnicity of our ancient people. But not only the hair tells the story, there's actually another huge piece here. You notice how the nose is missing on this statue? Seemingly chiseled out. Now what's interesting about this is a very common theme amongst many ancient statues and sculptures found around the world. Even on the Sphinx of Egypt, again, on all these ancient statues, the nose has seemingly been chiseled out. It's because the nose tells the real story, guys. It tells the real story. And when we see Greek statues like this, intact nose, no problem, white people, you know. And then you got the chiseled out nose here because it's telling the real story of our true ancestors. You think that it's just a coincidence that all of these ancient statues have the nose chiseled out? Well, let me tell you, it's most definitely not a coincidence, and it's just another way to cover up the real origins of humanity and our true history.
If you read what the Greeks said, not what we think, but if you read what the Greeks said, they said they got everything from Egypt. They got all their knowledge from Egypt. Pythagoras spent 15 years in Egypt. And what did he have to do? He probably had to spend 5 years convincing them that he was worthy to get the knowledge that they had. Remember, knowledge was power. Knowledge was sacred. Knowledge was something you just didn't publish in the newspapers. Knowledge was guarded very closely because it was of tremendous value. You wouldn't give it to anybody. You would give it to somebody who was willing to shave his head and be a penitent for 5 years, and then you might start to tell him things. Okay? And the Greeks did this. Pythagoras did this. Other Greeks did this. And they said that they got all their knowledge from the Egyptians. Now, when did we come up with the idea that the Greeks created everything from scratch? Well, believe it or not, it happened in the 18th and 19th century. And it's an unfortunate fact of life that Romanticism, which has many great things about it, also has a dark side, which has to do with racism. And in the 18th and 19th century, it was decided that it was just not appropriate for all this knowledge to come from an African country. Where would that knowledge, if it survived to the time of the Roman Empire, where would it have been kept? Yes. In Alexandria, in the museum, the library at Alexandria. And what happened to the library? It was burned in a war. Okay? And at that point, what happened to those books that were burned? If they were written in living languages, there was a scholar someplace who had memorized the book and could just write it down again. But if it was in a dead language, like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, end of story.
This is not a white Arab. This is not a white Arab civilization. This is an ancient African civilization. These are the people of Kemet. They are black people with curly hair. The Kemites were unanimously described by the Romans who saw them, the Greeks who saw them. This is a first-hand historical proof source, as black with curly hair. The European Egyptologists unanimously agreed that these were black Africans, but later changed the narrative to suit their colonial agenda. Why do you look like the way you look today? Because first the Assyrians invaded my ancestors, then the Greeks came, then the Romans, then the Arabs, then the Turks. All the greedy people wanted to claim this ancient African culture. But till this day, you people still don't understand what the
Back in ancient Egypt, the noses of statues were broken off on purpose, not by accident, not by time, but to erase the identity, power, and blackness of the people those statues represented. See, they knew that those were black faces. Those were African rulers, black kings, black queens, black gods, black rulers. And they didn't want future generations to look up and see that kind of power. Because you can't erase a people if you keep their image alive. In Egypt belief, the nose was the breath of life. The statue itself was seen as a living presence. So when you destroy the nose, you're cutting off the spirit. You're destroying the legacy. They broke the nose off the Great Sphinx, the oldest, most iconic structure in the world. And it was destroyed in the 1300s by a man who felt like people were worshiping it. But why did he break off the nose? Because he can see that those people were worshiping a statue that looked like a black man. They also did the same thing with Queen Hatshepsut, one of the most powerful female pharaohs. Her statues were smashed and her images were erased, all because she was a powerful black woman. The person that took her position, Thutmose III, he ordered for her legacy to be destroyed. They erased the nose, erase the face so they could erase the truth. Basically, the reason for breaking the noses and those features off those statues was about suppressing identity, removing evidence of power. During colonial times, European looters and colonizers, they entered Egypt and other African nations. They intentionally broke the noses off those statues because the features were too black to fit their whitewash stories. They couldn't handle a black man being the face of the world's greatest civilization.
These are monstrously huge, perfectly symmetrical faces.
Right.
Their temples are insanely intricate.
They were incredibly advanced.
Incredibly advanced.
With math, with science, with technology.
Certainly with geometry. 20-ton gigantic stone blocks that were taken from a mountain 500 miles away. And no one has any idea how the fuck they got them.
Nobody has any clue.
No guesses.
Right.
There's some guesses about, oh, maybe the river system was different back then. Whatever. How are you getting that 50-ton chunk of granite out of a fucking mountain and moving it down, even with modern equipment? How are you getting it over the mountain?
Lied to us about ancient Egyptian history and religion, and I'm about to tell you now. So as you can see, they say ancient Egypt was 5,000 years ago. Why does this matter? So the reason why they tell us that ancient Egypt was 5,000 years ago is so that it can align with the Bible. A lot of the stories in the Bible are actually not true about ancient Egyptians. Ancient Egypt was actually over 65,000 years ago. But they would never want us to know the true power of the spirituality that lies within ancient Egyptian history. This is El Hakim. And basically, he is indigenous to the actual ancient Egyptian area. He actually lives in those areas near the Sphinx, and he's been studying the ancient Egyptian history for as long as it's been. The tribe that he's a part of is actually also native to the land, and still are. His traditions, which are native to ancient Egyptian land, have taught him that ancient Egyptian is actually 65,000.
And they were brought here through slavery, had their names and history stolen from them. And people are literally like crying online hearing this. And this is kind of something I've kind of known, you know, for a little bit, but it's interesting how when something hits you, it almost reminds me of Juneteenth, how people were free from slavery, but they didn't know. And it was like, once they got the word, was Juneteenth. And it almost feels like this is a liberation for Black Americans to realize that some people are saying the American dream they've been sold is BS. That your lineage, your roots are greatness of kings and queens and royalty, and Lord knows in Egypt, the technology that we have no idea about. That's Black culture. That's Black American culture. That's African culture. A lot of people are saying, I had no clue. They thought Africa was just poor and, you know, kids sitting around with flies on their, you know, belly and stuff. No, it's beautiful. It's prosperous. It's like Wakanda. But they've just been hiding it from you. So I think there's a beautiful day of awakening. Hey, it's like Juneteenth.
No, I may have said a lot of things up here like, oh, I think we're these people or this, that, and the third, because we don't know our history. But when it comes to those Egyptians, I literally would throw in all of my money in a bet to say African Americans descended from the Egyptians. Because one, they needed us to build. And who are the only people everybody was fascinated with how they built? The Egyptians. Now, even if I'm not right, something happened to us. We lost a battle and somebody wiped the memory, or they took our somebody did something to where we can't self-identify ourselves anymore. And it was a war or something. Nobody can tell me otherwise. Now, there's a lot of reasons why I say what I say, but this one right here puts it on the cake. Apophis represents everything the Egyptians feared: darkness, oblivion, and the loss of one's identity. Who are the only motherfuckers in this world right now trying to figure out who they are? And what I'm starting to realize is all this religion really was the downfall of the Egyptians. Apophis is religion. He is darkness. Apophis is not only represented a threat to the deceased, but to the gods, Egypt, and the order of the cosmos. What were we talking about in that last video when I said this was a battle over the cosmos? And what's so crazy is Ra is considered to be like the god of all gods, but the Egyptians are considered to be the creator of life, everything they have. And what do African Americans do today? Create. And what's so crazy is down the Mississippi River and the Grand Canyon, there are so many Egyptian artifacts people are finding to show that Egyptians placed their stuff here to show this was a part of their land. And what's so crazy is they have a story about every other country and continent, but when it comes to America, it's a big ass question mark, just like the people inside of it. Whatever the case is, we have had to have some type of power. And when I say power, we had to be some threat for them to take what we identify as. And what's so crazy is, it makes sense, because if everybody were to say, oh, we were the real Egyptians, then why the fuck does everybody have y'all artifacts hanging around their own homes? That's the realty. If the only reason they could do that is if the people didn't know that's their shit. You get what I'm trying to say? Now, y'all know how they said they had Upper Egypt and then they had Lower Egypt, and Seth was considered to be the king of foreign kingdoms, meaning anything outside of that was his kingdom. Now, if you look at Pangea, right, North America sits right on top in the left of Africa. I'm just saying, hey, like I said, nobody can ever tell me black people weren't here way before, but they're just trying to erase the history. Because it's so crazy. They only do it with us. Everybody only focuses on Americans for some odd reason. Even the Aboriginal Australians, they always seem to mess with them. But what's so crazy is about them, they migrated out of Africa, so they say, and they went to Eurasia. The same spot the Native Americans came from. Hey. Then went all the way down to Australia. But they're still trying to figure out how they got all the way down there. You can get there by boats, right? They say we got here by boats, so why are y'all questioning how they got from Eurasia to Australia? They could do it in a boat. Why can't they do it in a boat, but we were in a boat? That makes absolutely no sense. These people migrated into Europe, Russia, Asia, then came all the way down to Australia, but none of them stopped in North America. Right where they were right next to, none of them stopped. And quite honestly, I feel like Caribbeans are the Native Americans to here. They just shipped them out because it was too many of us. I can get very deep, but hey. And before I go, the rise of Christianity actually ended the Egyptians. Like I said before, all of this religion ended the Egyptians. And what was the main thing that was forced upon black slaves? Religion. Christianity, Muslim. If these people did not convert, they had their testicles cut off so they could not produce an offspring. Hello. Oh, magic came from Egypt as well, just so you all know. Now, I also didn't know Cain is actually the brother of Seth. But what's even more, I saw that, I don't know if Cain is Seth or what. I'm still looking that up. But what's so crazy is, right, Cain isn't even a person. It's a tribe. And this is why I've always wondered, how were they able to identify the people that they wanted to sell, or identify the people who were in certain tribes? They had tattoos, which I'm starting to see why they say that is a devilish act, because of where it comes from.
So you would say that those are not the real Egyptians, right?
When we're talking about like the movies that they made back in the Western society, about, like the Egyptians looking blonde and fair skin, and like, come on, Egyptians, we are either tan skin or dark Nubians. We don't say African Americans in Egypt, by the way. We say Africans or we say Nubians. So to us, you are a Nubian.
So that's why people keep calling me Nubian Queen.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you are Nubian to us. You are Nubia. So to the Nubians, we are Egyptians because we are the new Egyptians.
The new Egyptians.
The Nubians are the native Egyptians.
The ancient,
they were
right?
the ones who built ancient Egypt.
Wow.
Who built the pyramids, who built ancient Egypt civilization, who invented Egypt, as I would say, were the Nubians.
There's a hidden history in Egypt that we were not allowed to know, and it all has to do with the brain. All of their imagery was symbolic, and they were trying to explain how to use your brain and develop consciousness so that their society thrived. Now, for example, this is the brainstem, and it represented the god Osiris. And if you look very closely, these similarities are way too accurate to dismiss. And this is all throughout the country, and these things are written in stone. It's very hard to change what's written in stone. And now that we have advanced anatomy images and the ability to create these impressive graphics, which is from Magical Egypt, if you haven't checked it out, you should definitely go look at it. But their goal was to create a prosperous society, and they knew that if they taught people how to use their brains correctly and develop as conscious people, then their society would thrive. So their way of educating was through images. For example, this snake represents the unity of the two hemispheres of the brain and the emergence of a conscious being. That's why the kings and queens had it.
The broken noses on many Egyptian statues are not accidents. In most cases, they were deliberately damaged. In ancient Egyptian statues were not just decoration. Egyptians believed a statue could serve as a physical home for a person's spirit. 2. Offering left in temples could be spiritually received through statues. If a statue has a face, it could see, hear, breathe, and then receive offerings in the afterlife. Because of this belief, damaging a statue's nose has a very specific purpose. The nose was broken to stop the statues from breathing, symbolically killing its spiritual power. Let's talk about the political revenge and power struggles. When a new ruler came into power, they sometimes tried to erase the previous ruler from history. This practice is known as damnatio memoria, which is erasing someone's memory. For example, a hardship put after her death left rulers trying to erase her legacy. Akhenaten, his status was destroyed after his religion revolution failed. Breaking the nose and sometimes carving out names symbolize stripping away divine power and legacy. Let's talk about the religious changes. When religion belief shifts, other gods or leaders associated with previous belief system were targeted. For example, Akhenaten promotes worship of one god. After his death, Egyptians turned to their traditional gods. His statues and damages were vandalized intentionally. Destroying the facial features was a way to spiritually neutralize them. Let's talk about the tomb robbery and looters. Grave robbers often damage statues as well. They believe statues could magically punish thieves. Breaking the nose or face prevents the spirit from identifying or harming them. Some damages happen while removing gold or a precious inlay. This was practical and superstitious at the same time. Let's talk about the later conquest and religion iconism. Egypt was invaded many times through the Assyrian, Persians, Greek, Roman, and later Islamic rulers. In some period, other religion damage were considered idle. Certain groups deliberately damage faces to remove spiritual significance. However, most damages happen in ancient time and not modern time. The Great Gate of Giza is one of the most famous examples. Many men said Napoleon's soldiers shot off the nose, not through drawing before Napoleon showed it already missing. Most historians believe the nose was deliberately destroyed around the 14th centuries. Some record suggests a Sufi Muslim man damaged it because locals were making offerings to it. But erosion also played a role over thousands of years. Statues have their nose broken in hidden features. There is no solid historical evidence that ancient nose damage were done to erase racial features. The damage was mainly spiritual, political, and religion. Ancient Egyptians was African. Its population was diverse over 3,000 plus years. But the broken nose were about belief and power, not modern racial ideas. Why the nose specifically? It stick out, easy path to break, symbols of breath equals to life, and then quick way to spiritual deactivate a status. Now let's talk about the summary. Most broken nose happen because white people want to erase some certain lineage too. They don't want people to realize the depth truth of what has literally happened before. 3, for political revenge. 4, for religious changes. And 5, for later iconoclasm. It was intentionally symbolic deactivated, not a random damage. Let me know what you think. Credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. It's not everything that we'll say. I rest my case. I want to say a very big thank you to everyone supporting, liking, commenting, sharing, and also dropping super thanks joining my membership. I appreciate. And secondly, credits to the original creators of every single clips we have in our today's episode. With that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you guys. Mwah.